What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down Patrick Mahomes' throwing mechanics. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a quarterback and would like to learn how you can read defenses, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get access to 500 plus videos just like this one, where I break down defensive formations, the best plays that will work against defenses, and how quarterbacks should think pre-snap. We organize all of those 500 videos into different categories like man coverage, cover 2, cover 3, etc. So it's easy to retain and easy to understand. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So Patrick Mahomes obviously is one of the best passers of the football. Honestly, I think you can make the argument ever, right? He's got a long career ahead of him, but the way he throws the ball, a lot of people think is, oh, well, you can't teach that. But honestly, he has a lot of similarities in his motion that some of the best mechanical and more traditional passers have that I want to showcase to you in this video. So this first throw is just like an absolute dart coming across the field, back shoulder pass that requires a lot of velocity and obviously a mechanically sound motion. We're also going to be discussing how he's able to throw on the run towards the end of this video. So just make sure if you guys want to improve your throwing on the run, you stay tuned throughout this whole thing. So mechanically speaking, fellas, all of your power as a quarterback, everybody loves to talk about arm talent. Mahomes has got these different arm angles, but your power as a quarterback obviously comes from your legs, your hips, and your core. It has nothing to do with your arm. Yes, your rotator cuff plays a role because you have to be able to rotate. You have to have a strong rotator cuff, but the way you generate power is from something called torque. And torque is coming from something called hip and shoulder dissociation. So that is created from having a good throwing sequence. So your throwing sequence is pretty much broken up into 4 parts. The first part is going to be your base. The second part is your front stride. The third part is the hip rotation, and then the last part is the shoulders and the football coming through. And it has to happen in that order. A lot of people think throwing is just, oh, I'm just going to throw the ball as hard as I can and move my arm real fast. Guys, it's a process of generating torque, like we said. So when you guys get into the pocket, the majority of your weight, as you see Mahomes here, has got to be loaded on your back leg. You see how light he is with his front foot? Because that weight that is loaded onto his back leg, he needs to take that weight and transfer it to his front foot. That transfer of weight, that shift, you don't want to think of it like a push, like a pitcher off the mound. You want to think of it like you're shifting your weight from quad to quad. That is where the hip rotation comes from. The hip rotation is something that's almost a little bit naturally occurring, if you will. And we're going to explain that. But you got to get to that base. You got to get weight back here because that helps you get to that shoulder and hip separation. Because when you have weight loaded on your back leg, our goal is obviously to transfer it to the front leg, like you see Mahomes do. And that's what gets your hips to fire. But also you want weight on your back leg. So when you go back with the football, you can rotate your front side. You guys want to be able to have this front foot hit the ground. And when your front foot hits the ground, your shoulders are loaded back. That's that dissociation position. That is how we create torque. Because now when your front foot's down, you have a good base. You had 60 to 70% of your weight on your back leg. Your back foot was not crazy wide. That's a mistake quarterbacks make. That back foot's under your shoulder frame. Now, when that front foot makes contact, the only option is to rip through with your hips. But because your shoulders are staying back, it's almost like a baseball swing or a golf swing. That hip rotation rips the ball through. And that's how quarterbacks get more rotations on the ball, more velocity, and I think personally more consistent because it takes pressure off their arm. So you see now the next part of the throwing sequence, like we said, we want the base so I could transfer the weight. We also want the base so I could close my shoulders as the second part of the throwing sequence happens. That is the shortened front stride. That's why we don't want to push off the back leg, fellas. Because a lot of quarterbacks get to this narrow base, but they push like they're a pitcher coming off a mound. And that stride gets overly long. Their base gets really wide. And when your feet are super wide, that prevents you from rotating with your hips. You turn into an all-arm thrower. And as a quarterback, yeah, maybe you get the ball there a couple times, but it's not consistent and it will not be sustainable because you're throwing all-arm. And guys, these NFL quarterbacks, you know how many throws they have in a given practice? It is a ton. You know how many throws they're making in the offseason? It's a ton. Throws they're making in a game week? A ton. They are not going to be able to do it if they are not using their body. Their arm will freaking fall off. They will be constantly, and they still are constantly icing their arm, taking care of their arm, even with throwing with their body. So you have to be mechanically sound to avoid those types of injuries. So again, his front foot gets down, his shoulders are back. What's the next part of the throwing sequence? Part 3, the hip rotation. A lot of quarterbacks don't like to think about like driving off the back leg. They think about just rotating at their hips, and that's fine. Something I've had a lot of success with the quarterbacks we train is I tell them to think your front hip wants to rip open. And when your front hip rips open, that brings the ball through. That brings the shoulder through, which is the fourth part of the mechanical sequence. That's how we get that snap to the ball, aka that hip and shoulder dissociation. So that's the throwing sequence, fellas. And you look at all of the top 32 quarterbacks in the world, all 32 NFL starters, guys. They all have different throwing motions by far. Mahomes is one of those guys, like, he does a lot of things wrong in terms of the old school quarterback coach. Like, he drops the ball low, holds the ball low, has one hand on the ball, does a lot of those mechanical things that all the old school guys love to teach. And I'm saying I'm not going to teach a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to do that either, like, or a high school quarterback. We're going to try to have clean mechanics to be efficient. Mahomes breaks a lot of those rules, and a lot of other quarterbacks do as well. But they all have something similar with their motion, and that is their sequence. It's the timing of the foot strike. It's their base, their weight staying back so their shoulders can close when the front foot gets down, because that's how you generate power. Everybody's got their own spin on this position. Everybody's got their own different motion, but how they generate power is the exact same way. You look at the way Tom Brady throws, he has a lot of these similarities. Weight back, short stride, shoulders close, hips bring the shoulders through. But as we can see, Mahomes and Brady, two very different quarterbacks. But mechanically, the way they generate power is very similar, because all quarterbacks, everybody's different, but all quarterbacks are rotational athletes, and that is how you were trying. You were trying to be the most efficient rotational athlete. You're not trying to throw like Patrick Mahomes. You're not trying to throw like Aaron Rodgers. You're trying to be an efficient rotational athlete. So now, we're going to look at this clip here from Mahomes throwing on the run. Now, this is a pretty insane throw, kind of across his body, but a lot of the key details about throwing on the run mechanics are covered in this video. Or in this clip, I guess you could say. So he's rolling to the right, and he throws this dart seemingly across his body to Valdez-Scantling here. So now, when you guys are throwing on the run, mechanically, it's honestly very, very similar to your throw in the pocket. The only thing that's different is the foot that you step with. So when you're in the pocket, not on the run, and let's say you're a right-handed quarterback, the foot that you're going to step with, which is when what should go back? Your shoulders should go back, and you need to have some weight on your back leg when your shoulders go back. The foot that you would step with would be your front foot, right? You're going to step with your left foot. You're going to rotate your shoulders going back, taking the football back, so those hips can rotate you through. On the run, what's different is that you are stepping with your throwing side foot instead. You're going to be stepping with your right foot. So when you step with the right foot, that is when you are going to start to rotate your shoulders and get to that dissociation. Now, why is it the right foot? Because when you're throwing on the run, you're not really rotating from your hips, but you still want to drive with your hips at the target. So when you step with your right foot, what does that do? That brings your hips forward. And when you separate, putting your shoulders back, that serves as that like bow and arrow, that slingshot, that dissociation. Your upper half is separate from the lower half. So now when you step in the direction of the throw, it is important to be accurate. And you see this, how Mahomes is throwing it back across the field. You have to point your throwing side toe wherever you want the ball to go. If he wants to throw to the sideline, he's going to point it towards the sideline because that's where his hips will go. He wants to point this more so towards the middle. He's going to point it more so towards the middle. So his hips get there, shoulders are back, and now the next part of throwing on the run is the leg kick. You want to kick your non-throwing side foot, so if you're a righty or left foot, the same time your arm is coming through. So you rotate those shoulders on the right foot, you kick through almost like that like toy soldier stretch. You know where guys do that stretch where they bring their opposite hand to their opposite toe and they kick their leg up? It's very similar to that. So that step gets your hips anchored where you want the ball to go. The kick through helps you finish and helps you finish with your arm in the direction you want to go. So your shoulders and your hips can stay facing the target, because on the run, your accuracy is all about where you finish. If your belly button is where you want the ball to go, chances are that's where the ball goes. If our throwing sequence, aka stepping with the throwing side foot and the shoulders going back, is correct. So on the run, that's just flipped. That's how you get a little more consistent, a little more accurate. Let's say he wanted to throw to the sideline. He would step more towards the sideline and kick more so towards the sideline so his belly button can stay at the target. That is the main key. So again, while this is a crazy throw, while this is like that Mahomes-esque throw that a lot of people will say that only Mahomes can make, I'm not saying you got to make this throw, but maybe you got like a running back who's just like kind of trailing behind you. It's a scramble drill and you want to make this type of throw. Mechanically, you can do it because you know how to do it. This is, and again, This is not like Mahomes the only one that can make this throw. Anybody that's ever played baseball, shortstop, second base, has probably had to make a throw like this before, fellas. And a lot of times with those baseball guys, it happens natural. They really don't think about it too much. As a quarterback, it's a little bit more difficult. There's a little bit more mechanics to it, I would say, because just a bigger football, you're going to have to hit at the moving target in most cases. But guys, same mechanics on the run. It's the same sequence that you want to have, even when it's not in a crossbody throw. So this is a great example of that from Mahomes. Great example of just tossing a dime over the middle. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave that in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like 500 plus videos all on how quarterbacks can read defenses, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that, fellas. Again, 500 videos all organized into categories where we break down the best plays against defenses and how to beat all coverages. So again, very first link below. I'll see you guys next time.